Hey friends, thank you for joining us online or with this video for session 4 of our 10 Men gathering. And this is a little different because we're doing it not interactively as there's some vacation plans going on as well as some health things going on with some family members. So thanks for being flexible with us. And the irony, of course, is that session 4 is on community with others and we're doing it individually. So that all being said, I think it's vitally important that as we go through this, that I want to just challenge you right off the bat about how you can develop not just a mentoring relationship or a mentee relationship with your mentor or mentee, but how that evolves into a friendship as well. And so those friendships involve things not just getting together for coffee or to talk, but sometimes those friendships mean going to Topgolf together or finding families to get together and have picnics or get-togethers or whatever else, because that's all an important part of this process as well. And so I think it's interesting that when we start off school, we have natural connections for friendships. We have friendships, sometimes that last a lifetime, sometimes that last just a few years or even a few months, but we have those natural avenues for friendships. But then what happens as we get older, those natural pathways, they end up going away to where we don't have those ways to make friends anymore. And so we lose those and we have less free time, we have more family commitments, and we wind up with fewer friends. Sometimes those fewer friends can be better friends, but as the most part, adults in America tend to be very lonely when it comes to deep, meaningful friendships. And so when we look back at the life of Jesus, what we see is that not only did he make disciples, not only was he a mentor to people or a rabbi to people, but he made friends as well. In fact, we see in the Gospel of John that he refers to Lazarus as a friend, and he calls his disciples friends. And so we want those friendships to form in the church. We want them to form in our neighborhoods. We want to recognize that people have a need for friendship. Friendships are God-given things. They are not something that we should take lightly. In fact, in John 15:13, Jesus says of himself, "Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." And so we think about that aspect of the deepest level of friendship is one where we make sacrifices for one another. Jesus obviously laying down his life for us, where our salvation is won at the cross. But ultimately, we also recognize this whole idea that our friendships form deeper. They grow deeper roots whenever we make meaningful sacrifices for one another. I know we're in the midst of some family health issues going on with my father-in-law right now, and those friendships that we have are growing deeper because we see people stepping up and going to bat for us and for my father-in-law in his time of need, and that's been a huge blessing for us. And those roots are growing deeper and deeper. When we look back in the Old Testament, we see in 1 Samuel chapter 17 that King David defeats Goliath, and Saul immediately starts to see David as a threat to his throne. However, Saul's own son Jonathan actually chooses to befriend David instead of seeing him as a competitor to the throne. And we see that great act of friendship that goes on there, where literally Jonathan walks away from his being the rightful heir to the throne because he believes that his friend David is the one who is called to do it. And that's pretty deep. That's pretty powerful. And I think we've all had friends who have made major sacrifices for us. But man, just think about the intent of that. Now here's the passage we're going to look at primarily today. 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 4 and 1 through 4. 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 4. It says, "After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as he loved himself. And from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself." It's repeated in there. Did you hear that? Jonathan took off his robe he was wearing and gave it to David. And along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow and his belt. And so Jonathan has these royal clothes as the heir apparent to the throne, as the prince, if you will. And here he is giving these things to David and saying, no, like you're the one who I want to see thrive. And so we see Jonathan could have chosen jealousy instead of friendship and community, but his deep love for his friend won out as well. And I've heard stories of this in modern contexts where maybe it's a friend who's competing for a job, and yet the friendship is bigger than the promotion. And that's so important that people make sacrifices for one another. People step down from their rightful position, if they will, that they think that they deserve, and say, no, like I really think that they would be a better fit for it. And so these deep friendships, man, there's always sacrifice involved in them. And so when you think about your Jonathan, who is it? Who is your Jonathan? And I remember actually my best friend growing up, his name is John. And I spoke at his wedding, and I remember speaking to some of these key aspects of his life and how he modeled that loyalty to me, how he's always been one who's been deeply loyal to me. He's been a friend since I was literally 3 years old. Our moms got us together for the first time. Think about that. How is it that you can develop deep friendships, whether they be ones that you already have established and you want to grow deeper, or how is it that you can start now and develop those deeper friendships that will develop over the course of the rest of your lives. I know for me and my friend John, he grew up in a Christian home, but was really not a believer himself until after college. And we even went on a baseball road trip, had some deep, meaningful talks. But it was a few years after that where he made a decision to follow Jesus himself, make Jesus the Lord of his life, and be baptized in him. I think he got baptized in a river in North Carolina. And now our friendship has gone to the next level where we've been able to entrust one another at a deeper level because of our Christian faith, and really have good, meaningful, sometimes tough conversations, but good and meaningful as well. And that's been a huge blessing to see him grow in his faith in that way. And so we also see that the early church had a deep level of community and friendship with one another. Listen to what it says here in Acts chapter 2, verse 42 and following. It says, "They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." And I think I love the comparison between what we see with David and Jonathan and then the early church in Acts 2 for a reason. Because what we see David and Jonathan is a small circle friendship where there's just a few people involved, two, maybe three or four, and that's it. It's a very tight-knit group, and those kind of friendships are important. But then there's also this bigger circle of friendships that we just call the church, that we are to be friends with one another. We're to develop those spiritual friendships in a broader circle. Maybe we don't have the same level of depth that we might have with those smaller relationships. It'd be impossible to. But there's still deep, meaningful relationships that are very important in those contexts. And so who are your small circle friends? Who is it that is just two, maybe three or four in that circle that you can go really deep with? But then how is it that you can be a blessing to the bigger body of friends that we call the family of the church? And so the early church had such a contagious spirit about it that the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And they cared for the widows. They cared for those who were in town as visitors, as many of them were for the day of Pentecost. And many of them stayed as they became Christians before they went back to their hometowns. And so they welcomed people. They provided for people. They met people's needs. And they provided this great fellowship with one another where they helped people grow. And so I just want to ask a question in closing today. What next steps can you take to grow friendships for you and those closest to you? There are some simple things that come to mind that I want to just put out there as suggestions. One of them is just taking the level of initiating a deeper friendship. Sometimes we can just sit at home and we can think, well, they're busy, they won't want to hang out or whatever else. Take that initiative. They might say no. They might say, no, I'm too busy or whatever else, and that's fine if they do. But chances are, most people will make space for you, will make time for you if you just ask. And a lot of people are looking for those deeper level of friendships. So who inside or outside the church is it that you can reach out to and develop a deeper friendship with? And in doing so, help grow them closer to Christ. And it can be good for your own discipleship, your own growth as well as you encourage and minister to them. And then I think the next thing as we talk through this is how can you take an existing friendship that maybe you're on the surface level, but you want to grow deeper and have faith conversations about them or with them. And I would say, be bold in those situations when you want to grow deeper. You can ask some questions that will help, such as, hey, is there anything I can be praying for you for? I know one of my friends from growing up that that I've been trying to reach for Christ for quite some time. I'll ask him from time to time, hey, are you doing okay? Is there anything I can be praying for you for? And most of the time he says, no, everything's fine. But he still knows that I care about him in that level and that I want to see him thrive in his faith. And so what next steps can you take to grow your friendships for you, to grow them deeper, take them to the next level? Be intentional about those statements that you make, letting them know that you care for them, letting you know that you would do anything to help them. And then I would say, in closing, I would just say, who is it that has a specific need around you right now that you can show that friendship, that love of Christ and love for your neighbor for by stepping in an intentional time? Because friendships might grow in good times, but they are forged in tough times. Whenever someone's going through a tough time, when people step up for them, it's such a big deal. I know I just visited someone in the hospital the other day that I barely knew, and yet there was a friendship that was forged just through our conversation as they were going through that tough illness, and just seeing that was really good for me. And was really a blessing to me. And so while I was there to be a blessing, I wound up getting the blessing out of it. Okay, so take some of these thoughts back with your mentor or mentee. And I'd encourage you to do something fun with them this summer as well, whether it be sit outside at a cafe, or whether it be go to Topgolf, or go to a ball game together. Whatever it is, it might be that can just be a fun, encouraging, friend-building thing to do as well. Because again, like mentorships start off as mentorships, but in the ideal world, they wind up as friendships. Just as Jesus started off by calling his disciples, but at the end of his ministry, before he goes to the cross and the resurrection, he's literally calling them his friends. What a beautiful image for us. Especially as we go through the book of Philippians as well. We see Paul doing the same thing with the church at Philippi, developing these deep spiritual friendships with them. God is not opposed to friendships. In fact, he's the creator of friendships. He wants you to have deep, meaningful relationships with your friends. I hope and pray that you can see that come to be as a result of 10 men and other things that you're involved with here. So God bless you. We will see you again in July. And grow those friendships, because God wants you to have deep, meaningful friendships. God bless.